Hello, this is High Priestess Key coming to you to do today's message, which is all going to be all about. It's not really a message, it's really us talking about. I'm so used to saying messages, and I do have my retainer in. So if I'm talking a little funny, that is why. But today's episode is definitely all about, you know, why am I going through this? Right? That's a question that a lot of us have in reference of the different darkness that we could come amongst, we could start to walk through. And when I say darkness, I'm referring to the shadow in reference of spiritual warfare. And a lot of people use that word, but they don't know that there are actual levels and different aspects of spiritual warfare. They use the dark night of the soul in reference of also speaking on spiritual warfare and so forth. Sometimes some people look at it as you being in a dark place. And this is the question that constantly comes up during spiritual warfare. I know for a fact, okay? I can testify to going through it many times. And to that, this is why I decided to make this the next High Priestess Key 333 episode. So I definitely wanted to talk about spiritual warfare. And as you guys know, even when I do my shadow work sessions, I always start out with the definition that you can look up. Most people do that, right? When you're going through something, you look up the definition, right? You look it up on your computer or you look it up on your phone because you actually want to know what it truly is. But hopefully, with this video, and I don't want to make it that long, I want it to be to the point in reference of your question, right? Why am I going through this, right? And so I'm gonna touch on several different levels, which is I'm just gonna keep it to the three, right? But there's many other things that the people can, bring about and talk about and so forth in reference of spiritual warfare, especially if it's connected to a religion. Let me start out by that. I'm speaking in reference of those that are on a spiritual journey that are not specifically connected to any religions. You are just spiritual. You take on the energy of you're your own inside internal God and goddess, right? So you reign supreme in your own universe. Okay, you embrace the universe within, and that's what you know with your own power, you being your own alchemist in reference of how to truly tap in with self. And a part of this message and this episode on High Priestess Key is giving you one of the keys to be able to tap in and understand why I'm going through this. Why are you going through this? Why we all go through this in some point of our life. Because not knowing will take you to the next level of chaos and destruction. And in those cases, that can lead to your demise. So we don't want that. We want to work on self, right? And I'm just here as a vessel from the ancestors, your ancestors, my ancestors, the Most High, the universe, to deliver the message and break it down as best as I possibly can. I have pulled many resources to show you visually, right? Although I could tell you, but sometimes some people are visual, right? Visual learners, visual people, right? And you want to see it. So I do have some slides today that I will add in reference of us going over what it truly is in reference of spiritual warfare, okay? Because it's not great, okay? It's really not a happy event. It doesn't feel good. It makes you very confused and it makes you feel sometimes scared and afraid because that is that energy of negativity and demonic forces come up against you and it brings you that negative low vibrational energy, right? That as all humans we have, okay? But it's best that when we're able to recognize, then we can accept and then we can shift and change, transmute energy, okay, which is one of the universal laws, okay? And you guys know I talk about the universal laws all the time, okay? Um, so let's get into the actual definition of spiritual warfare because it's best for you to know exactly what we're referring to and what I'm talking about. Um, to get to know why you're going through this, right? Or why are you experiencing these things over and over, and to give you some solutions also, okay? Um, so spiritual warfare is the ongoing conflict, okay? And it's real, all right? Um, your spirit, okay? We all have a spirit, we all have a soul, okay? In this lifetime, right? Whether you believe in reincarnation or not, but you do, right? You have a spirit. And in this lifetime, and your lifetime that you're going through at this point in life on this earth, dealing with the planetary alignment, there's many dark times that you're going to come amongst. And that is because of the yin and the yang, right? The duality, the polarity, however you want to swing it, or whatever someone is basically going to tell you in reference of the good and the bad, okay? The balance, all right? But in some cases, the bad outweighs the good, okay? And this is when your spirit, is going through war, right? And this happens on a rim, right, which we call rim, right? And the best way to acknowledge or to let you know is like spiritual forces of evil against spiritual forces of good. But that goes back to free will as well, right? Because you have the free will to move amongst this earth, this 3D, this matrix, whatever you want to call it, the way that you see fit, right? And you also have those govern of laws and the concepts of principles of spirituality, right? If you decide to walk on that path, if you decide to walk on that path in reference of a spiritual journey, you can best believe that those evil demonic forces will come towards you in some shape, form, or fashion, because the negative energy will always attract to the light, the dark, right? It's just like having the positive and the negative when you think about that scientific, explanation um, of balancing, or even of creating molecules and so forth. If we get into chemistry and physics and all of that, I took that in college, so I'm just trying to let you know how it goes even further, right? Scientifically, but that is why it's also called the metaphysical world that you're in and what you deal with when you're on that spiritual, esoteric, occult, right? Whatever the journey you want to call it, right? Um, you're gonna go up against having that spiritual warfare in your life at some point in time. Okay, even if you're not even if you're not in on a spiritual journey, you're going to go through it more because you're doing low level, low vibrational things, so you're going to constantly be attacked, right? Because you're moving around in that. But if you're at least doing some things that are, if you're doing the right thing as well, like on your spiritual journey, and you're doing the right thing, even if you're not on a spiritual journey, you're doing something right, you're going to always have the darkness that's going to try to attract to the light, and it's going to hit the head. But we have ways of combating that. We have ways of making it easy. I'm not going to say that can stop it, because there's nothing that can stop that. That's just the balance of life, right? But it is ways to be able to first recognize and to understand which level you're at or what you're on, and how to deal with it. That's the main key, right? Is acknowledgement, is accepting it, and is to be able to move forward in reference of combating it. Okay. So never allow somebody to tell you that you can't combat anything, because we conquer all battles. Okay. With your intentions and with your power, and knowing who you truly are and going within. All right. So you'll always hear me saying ascension tension, because that's truly what it is. When you're ascending, you're going to get that tension even more, right? It's going to come harsh. It's going to be traumatic. Okay. When you're a light, when you're a star seed or indigo child, all these different names and meanings of the actual star, right? Um, that moon energy, which is the trauma, will seep in, right? The sun and the moon and the stars, right? So you'll have all these different elements that, and we'll talk about the cosmic level, right? Um, Once we get into, more of the planetary alignment and so forth and what to kind of look for. All right. So, as I was stating, it's definitely that. So, when I was explaining to you exactly, it encompasses the internal struggle of something that is of dark nature, right? Even sinful acts and behavior, um, being non righteous, okay? All of these things can create a spiritual attack or spiritual warfare, but even being righteous, even being on the right path. See, some people don't tell you that either. Okay, they tell you, oh, if you low vibrating, you ain't doing right, you gonna have bad things that happen to you, but they don't tell you that you're gonna be in a spiritual warfare even by doing the right things. A lot of people don't tell folks that, and so they are wondering, why am I going through this in my life and I'm doing everything right? That is why. That is why, because your light is making that darkness run towards you, right? So we're going to get into exactly how to handle that. Okay. Exactly how to handle that. All right. So let's first start by some of the levels. Okay. The levels, right? Internal. Well, this one isn't. No, wait a minute, family. Hold on. Let me see. This one is the other one. I'm sorry. I got multiple screens. Okay. Okay, this is the one I kind of wanted to start out with. Okay, so first, the three levels of spiritual warfare are personal. Okay, personal, interpersonal, and strategic. Now, the way that I want you to look at that is the breakdown. Also, is about the three levels of it being personal. You can even say this second one is more or less like cosmic, right? And then the last one is more or less like corporate, right? Where you're battling your outside self, right? Or your outside things that could happen. But we're going to look at it from many aspects, okay? Um, and I want you to understand that. Um, let me let me say this one so you guys can understand. Okay. Okay, hold on, family. I am trying to work this thing through for you guys, right? Okay, so this one right here is a lot bigger and you can see it and it breaks it down a little bit better, right? So visualize these levels, right? The personal, right? It's the inner battles within the individual. And some of us that are doing things on a spiritual journey, and we're even like your light workers, your teachers, spiritual teachers, and so forth. You may be, you know, battling the cosmic, way of looking at things. But some people actually that are battling just getting on a spiritual journey are battling inner battles, right? And we're going to break all these down. But even corporate, which is like collective battles with people that are in your community or your job or, your environment, your friends, your, communities in corporate, right? work environments and stuff like that. We're going to talk about each level, but I wanted to show you the different levels of spiritual warfare. And then the cosmic levels is the supernatural battles, right? That's on battling other, demonic forces on other realms and things. And, you may be battling, in your dreams or things like that, right? So it's in planetary alignment. You may be battling. It may be just written that you're going to battle, something during this time in your life, because everything is written, right? So these are the things. So these three levels represent distinct areas or arenas where battles unfold, okay, in the spiritual warfare of things. Understanding and navigating these levels is essential in fully comprehending the complexity of spiritual warfare. Embracing the unique characteristics of each level empowers individuals and communities to engage effortlessly or effectively in spiritual battle, right? So, knowing the first one, right? Knowing the personal, which is the inner battles, right? Um, I definitely feel that with these inner battles, family, it's challenging. It's challenging. This is where shadow work comes into play, first and foremost. Okay. That's why I do shadow work sessions, because I've been through these multiple levels in multiple times in my life. And that's why I'm here to let you know. It's not sugarcoated. It's not to tell you that it's never going to happen. And if it happens one time, it ain't going to happen again in your life. You're going to constantly go through that warfare, right? You're going to constantly have battles to fight on your journey. But the personal goes back to your internal struggles, temptations, and strongholds, and blockages, and karmic debts, and things like that. This is where the personal inner battles for individual comes into play. Um, I showed you guys this one, which was about the levels of the internal, right? The enemies, like your personal vices and so forth, right? And even on this one, it talks about the personal warfare refers to the internal struggles that individuals face against their own sinful nature and temptations. Okay. And not only that, I want to say even about your abuse and things that you've went through in your past, if not just you being abusive to self, which this highlights as well, but others being abusive to you, right, in some shape, form, or fashion, right? So this level includes battling personal weaknesses and doubts and fears and abuse, things of that sort. I want to add abuse to that, right? But that can lead one away from their spiritual growth and alignment with God. It emphasizes the need for self-awareness, prayer, and resilience on spiritual strength to overcome these internal challenges. Okay. So these are some of the things, because if you're at fear, then you're not going to have faith in the Most High and your ancestors to help you change anything. If you are constantly in your vices and you're constantly dealing with doubt, and your solar plexus is most likely out of whack, and your root chakra and so forth, your chakras all out of whack, and even your sacral, because of personal weaknesses and people going through these major personal things can definitely shift the energy within, you know. That's why I always say um, with the personal, I'm sorry, family, I'm looking at this, trying to make sure I got all of them. Yeah. With the personal inner battles with individuals, this is one of the main highlighted ones that we all go through that make you ask, why am I going through this? And a lot of times, family, it's not that you you're going through it behind something that you've done. It's more or less like of what you've accomplished and succeeded. Okay. And healing is one. Like when you're going through a major healing process, and your light is shining and your aura is bright. Excuse me, family. I was looking for when I got, I was looking for another slide. But when your aura is bright, that's when a lot of negative things will try to attract to that light. As I keep telling you guys, the darkness definitely tries to attract to light, just like I have on all white because I took a spiritual bath, right? But you get dirty, right? That dirt seems like, how people be like, seem like I just, every time I wear white, I just get something on me dirty. That's why, because you are a bright light. You are bringing in that positive, uplifting, elevated energy, right? But for some of us, once you are radiating, so, that's that frequency. Once you're on that different frequency, it's always something trying to pull that energy back down, right? So this is why it's always good, and I tell people to turn within, and that goes back to your meditation and your prayer and your journaling and do your shadow work and really sit with self. This is why I do shadow work sessions, right? And I started to bring that back to all of my platforms, because my spiritual family actually reminded me of that because of their inner battles, right? And how shadow work sessions has helped even them, because the reason why I did shadow work sessions was because of level one, the personal internal battles. And majority of people start going through those when you first start your spiritual battle. You can go through it during grief. You can go through that personal inner battles when you're going through a breakup, divorce, financial situations, or even just mental instability, you know? So the personal taps, it really taps in with a lot of people, and a lot of people can really connect to that internal, personal vices, as we see here. Um, and just knowing that it will, it shakes your core. It messes with your spiritual growth and takes you out of alignment with the Most High. And when it starts doing that, family, it's all about self-awareness. It's all about repentance for some of us. I'm not going to say for some, I'm going to say for all. And sometimes, even if you have already repented, it's just about your light, right? It's just about your light. All right. So the second phase or level is the corporate. The corporate level, right? So that corporate level is definitely about collective battles within a community, and some of us go through these spiritual battles in reference of dealing with spiritual communities that you're in. Some of you go through it, spiritual battles with the community. It's on the corporate level. It involves battles with the community, such as your families, your churches, your spiritual family, organizations, your work, your job. It's all about understanding this level is crucial, because this is about unity, and this is about relationships, and this is about your growth within those relationships. Okay. And it's also spiritual warfare on the corporate level, family. It can arise by the collective consciousness within the community, is what they call it, and they say, right? Because what it really goes back to is the individual that faces internal struggles, again, going back to the personal issues, temptations, and strongholds, but the communities encounter challenges that hinder the spiritual progress. So this may manifest in reference of disagreements, divisions, right? Trying to bring people, separate people, discord, spiritual attacks, targeting a community. So towards how you, what your beliefs are, what your faiths are, this is the battle spiritually that you could go through in a community. Okay. So the whole thing is being able to recognize what's happening within that community, or if you're seeing this happen within you being in that community, right? and recognizing and understanding it. As I always tell you guys, that's the main battle, right? So let me see which one this is on the strategic one, right? Let's see. Okay. Yeah. So it is the interpersonal warfare. It's the second one. So interpersonal warfare occurs in relationships with others. So this is the same as the community or the corporate level one, okay? Where spiritual battles manifest through conflicts with others, right? Misunderstandings, disagreements, discords, quarrels, negative influences from around you, right? This could be work, family, whatever it is. This level highlights the importance of maintaining healthy relationships and being aware of how external influences can affect one's spiritual journey. Okay. So that's why I wanted you guys to actually understand that the corporate aspect or the interpersonal aspect of warfare is challenging. Okay. It's very challenging because this is when you may want to you may want to go into soul solitude, is what I call it, right? And the soul solitude goes back to the energy of um, being able to distance self from that community or from that family or from that aspect. Now, in reference of it being work, you have to look at other ways to get around it because we got to work, right? For some of us. But it's about having strategic combat to get you away from or get you out of that negative energy that's trying to come towards you or bring some type of energy into your life that does not, meet your highest good or work for your highest good, right? In that battle, I'm going to go over some solutions in reference of how to combat that. I'm just going over the 3 levels at this time so you know the differences, right? But it's all about, like I said, the level of the corporate levels are the challenges that we definitely face as a collective. Okay, spiritual attacks, that effect of for the community, whatever, who you're with, who you're around, where you're from, your bloodline, right? It could just be your bloodline. It could just be your birthright that these spiritual people are spiritually attacking you because of who you are or who you have come here on this earth attached to, right? So it's a major impact around relationships, right? Unless I told you. So the cosmic level, right? The cosmic level, family, is where we enter a realm beyond the physical reality. Okay. This is when these are people who have probably been on their spiritual journey. They're really tapped in, and you actually have where you're battling the cosmic magnitude in reference of dreams and so forth. This is spiritual realm. It's the supernatural forces or external struggle between the good and the evil. Um, in my research, it says when we think of the cosmic level, we imagine a grand battlefield, right? Where spiritual beings, both angelic and demonic, engage in an ongoing clash for dominion and influence in the spiritual realm. It is a level where the stakes are high and the consequences are far reaching. That's what it states in my research, right? And it also goes back to the strategic warfare, okay? Um, because the strategic warfare gives a different meaning, right? And I'll read this in a minute, but I also want you to understand that the cosmic warfare is this supernatural battles in the spiritual realm. Okay. So this battle is about, if you're looked at as being on the angelic realm of things, which is meaning you're getting closer to source, you're getting closer to the divine, you're reaching out to your ancestors, you've made that connection, you know, when you're getting that spiritually engrossed into your walk. Even some of you that are in other religions like ATR religions, African tradition religions that are connected with initiations and so forth, and you're dealing with the deities and things like that. this is when all of these type of spiritual warfare attacks start happening. Some of you that are not even in religion or maybe in other religions too, like, being Muslim and other things, right? Even Christianity. But some of you that aren't in any religions, such as myself, and we still battle with spiritual, with the cosmic, spiritual, natural, supernatural battles in your dreams and in things like that. That goes back to the battles that transpire at that level is because of your profound impact. You see what I'm saying on in the spiritual fabric within you and what you've tapped into, right, within this universe. So what I also have here is what I was saying in my research, and I have a lot of things written down, but you'll see me look over here because that's where my resources are, and then I have my things that I have up for you guys. But what I want you to know on the cosmic level of things is where we clash between darkness and light, right? It's the divine truth against the deceptive lies. You see? Because when this is open and you start to realize that real eyes, right? Realize real lies. That's why I love that, right? You can't turn it off and you can't turn it back. So spiritually, sometimes, not sometimes, all the time, you're going to be attacked. That is the supernatural battles. That is the cosmic level of battles. And it's pretty much once what I said, okay? The cosmic forces of good represented by the angelic beings, spiritual beings, and the forces of evil that lead by powerful demonic entities or energy. You have to go to combat. It's opposing forces that engage in spiritual combat, seeking to influence the course of events here on earth, within you, right, and beyond. So with the cosmic realm, the main things of characteristics that you need to understand, and I love this one, and I'm going to stay on this one because a lot of people that are in the spiritual community deal with this. So this is one of my favorite ones to discuss because I feel like this is one that I'm going through as well, or have, okay? So I'm going to highlight this one to show you. We're going to go a little deeper into this one so you guys can understand and see, right? So this one definitely talks about it's crucial to remain vigilant and aware of this cosmic battle as it shapes the spiritual climate and influences the choices we make. By understanding the cosmic level of spiritual warfare, we gain insight into the unseen dimensions that surround us. So the characteristics, these are the things you need to understand when it comes to cosmic level. Now, like I said, this is for those that have been on your journey and, you are been doing the greater good. And you're going to be, have this intense spiritual warfare on a cosmic scale. Now, what does that mean? That definitely means that, you're going to battle, you're going to face some adversity. Okay. Involvement of angelic and demonic forces. Yes. If you're working with a lot of angels, ancestors, that the good, then you're going to deal with some type of spiritual cosmic warfare. If you're even dealing with demonic forces, you're going to deal with some type of warfare, okay? Influence on human history and destiny of souls. That goes back to your lineage, okay? This goes back to your birthright. This goes back to your bloodline. Some of us just have a human history, and you're going to have to deal with this supernatural cosmic energy warfare, okay? And the profound impact on the spiritual fabric of the universe. This is just going back to tell us about what I was talking about earlier, where it's just like, the battles that transpire with that fabric of the universe is all about the good, right? That's represented, and the bad that's represented within this universe. Okay. As we navigate the cosmic level of spiritual warfare, it's crucial to rely on the wisdom and the guidance of spiritual leaders and authoritative sources. And it is. It's why it's always good to lean on. First off, I always tell you your first line of defense is your ancestors and the Most High. But then after that, if you do have someone that you can lean on to help you with combating because of their experience, that is the first, or I'm saying not the first, but that is the next level of dealing with the characteristics and dealing. And once you're able to identify now and know, hey, I am going through some level of spiritual warfare, then this is when you need to be looking at your spiritual leaders and your authoritative sources. Okay. And sometimes if you don't have that, it's all about going within, right? But first thing first, your ancestors and the Most High going to combat with you anyway, especially if you're feeding into and doing your ancestral work and doing your energy work. You're going to have that defense, right? So their insight can offer a deeper understanding of these spiritual battles and empower us to stand firm in the face of adversity. Yes, that is true. And some people have that and some people don't. So I want to acknowledge that as well. All right. And then I want to go back to the strategy, right? So that strategy talks about the strategic warfare encompasses a broader spiritual battle that involves social and cultural influence. This goes back to overall or overarching battle against evil forces represented by the devil or by the Satan energy, right? Because remember, it's all about energy, which is the demonic force. Okay. This level focuses on understanding the larger spiritual landscape and the tactics used by evil to deceive and lead people astray. So I feel like this is talking about the cosmic, because that's your beliefs, right? You either believe in the negative or you believe in the positive. You believe in the good, you believe in the bad, or you believe in both. And it's about balance, right? And so strategically, I feel that's what people should be taught, because we have to have some type of darkness to protect, but we need to also have that light. So once again, it comes back down to balance and being strategic, right? It encourages believers to engage in prayer, spiritual discernment. That has been talked about multiple times. And actually, that was one of my downloads that I keep receiving, as well as we pull cards in the morning message about discernment. Okay. So understanding the three levels is essential and effective of navigating your overcoming spiritual battle in one life. Each level requires different strategies and approaches, emphasizing the need for holistic view of a spiritual warfare. Okay. By recognizing these levels, though, the individual can better equip themselves to face the challenges that arise on your spiritual journey. And I feel that that is true. On whichever level this is that you're on, it's all about you being able to recognize that, family. All right. That is why I bring this to you. The combat levels in the spiritual realm. When discussing the levels of the spiritual realm, we have to take into account the multifaceted natures of such conflicts, right? Because there's going to be multiple different conflicts in different ways, but this gives us different tools, as well as a way for you to abstract and tangible affecting individuals and whole communities, but to be able to recognize it. Okay. So the level of personal, right, which is all about your main focus, is self-improvement. All right. The territorial is the environment that takes place in reference of your focus. So you should purify your territory in these cases. I'm sorry. Personal vices. That's what I'm going to the next one. I'm sorry. I meant to go down. So this is all about you. This is your first section, is all about you. The personal, um, uh, sorry, family, personal level. Just lost my train of thought that fast. Okay, that ain't nothing but the demonic forces wanting to come in to not allow me to get this message out to y'all. But I rebuke that. I'm going to get it right on out to you guys. So this is the personal level. This is the hmm, corporate level. Okay. And the last one is the cosmic level right here. Okay. That's what I was trying to think of, corporate level or community level, rather. All right. So first, self-improvement, that should be your focus when it comes to combat. And these are your solutions. Okay. In reference of combating that this spiritual warfare. It's all about self-improvement. What we talk about with self-improvement, that goes back to the whole thing of knowing, family, right? Knowing, acceptance, um, uh, awareness, right? This is all levels of improvement, okay? So we must be able to recognize. See, the first thing is to be able to recognize. And once you recognize, those are what's going to help you in reference of that first level of focus. It's about your personal struggles. You must have that inner resilience first of going within, of being able to sit yourself down and really get disciplined and focus on self-improvement. That comes with self-awareness. That comes with wanting to be righteous. That comes with you being aware of things that you truly need to do for self. Okay, so self-improvement is the first thing on the list in reference of combating these spiritual realms and the spiritual warfare that you could go through or will go through. That's why it's called focus at the beginning. But with that focus, it takes a lot of energy to make sure that you are going within, with the personal level. That's the struggles with your sins, with your temptations, with your trauma, your drama, the abuse, your moral choices, your beliefs. It takes a lot for you to be able to sit, focus, and really decide about self-improvement. Okay, that is the first thing for the internal personal level. Okay, is focus. And the second thing is for you to recognize your personal vices. This is your enemies when it comes to and I just list them, right? Those are your enemies: the sin, the personal sins, your temptations, your morals, all of those things, right? Are your personal sins. But what can help us to recognize and to fix these things? Meditation or even therapy, prayer, right? All of these things can help to help you get through. The meditation definitely goes back to centering self, grounding self, right? The meditation goes back to coming to source, right? Meditation is definitely where you're going to be able to get back to your sound mind and to be able to receive those messages, be able to receive those downloads, and to be able to get back to your mind, your body, and your soul and your spirit being in alignment. That is the first. Okay. So that is the first for your personal battle and your tools to use. Now, therapy is also on here, which I feel like therapy is a good thing. If you don't feel like you have the means or the aspect of therapy, check out shadow work sessions. That's what it was back before. I couldn't afford going to therapy no more. So therefore, I did my own research. I started, pouring into myself. I was self-aware. I wanted to be improve myself every day. And so that's what we have to do. Take the initiative, be accountable. Okay. So that's all about the first level and their tools. And this is to help you combat those things. All right. Now, the second level, right, we talked about, which was the corporate or the territorial is what they call it here. That's why I had got a little confused earlier. Sorry, family, because they got different slides, got different names, but they're all the same three levels: personal, corporate or community, and then cosmic. Okay. So on here, they say territorial, which is true. You should be able to combat your territory, your external vibration. See, the first one was about your internal. That was the personal part. This is about your external. This is your enemies of the negative energy around you. Okay. They're not like your personal, which was your personal vices. These are the things that are external to you. This is about environment purification. Okay. So this goes back to just what it says, right? Your environment, um, your environment being cleaned up. How do we do that? Well, first you have to either, remove yourself. Like I said, this is the time where the environmental purifications take you. Either if it's something crucial to the point that it's starting to really affect your spiritual journey and your mind and your mental and all these different things, then you need to remove yourself. Soul solitude. The second advice I have in reference of, or what's documented in reference of environment purifications, go back to you cleansing your space and cleansing you, right? Um, And then, when you look at your corporate battles, this also goes back to, mentorships, right? Maybe the negative forces, you can have some type of mentorship or some type of trusted spiritual leader or spiritual guidance from someone that you trust, right? And if you don't have that, this is a time of self-reflection. Okay. Cleansing rituals, symbols, sigils, things of that sort, help against negative energy. Your talismans, right? The things that you can wear, your crystals, start utilizing the spiritual tools, your sages, right? The things that you use to combat, negative energies, right? Your sages, your sprays, your Florida waters, all these things. This is what you use for your environment to cleanse, because it's all about environment purification when it's the corporate way. It's about seeking therapy, or, it's all those things when you think of how to combat, corporate or territorial. All right. And then last but not least, cosmic. So the way to combat or to focus is universal harmony, which goes back to universal, or unity for the collective unity. Okay, is what the cosmic wants you to focus on, and how to combat that, because you're going to have those spiritual adversities. Okay, and that goes back to what we talked about earlier. Where on a spiritual cosmic level, you're going to come up against different, malefic against malefic, right? It goes against angelic, demonic forces, right? Where you're going to battle. You're going to be, it shapes your spiritual climate. It's the influences and the choices in your faith. When you're dealing with the cosmic energy, and the ancestors have on here prayer and cosmic awareness. That's true. These are the things that are your tools. Prayer, meditation is first, and your ancestors, pouring into your ancestors. Ancestral work is also your major tool. Ancestral work is your major tool when it comes to cosmic level of spiritual warfare. All right. That's your first line of defense. And I have a whole video that I made on YouTube that you can check out about that. Okay. But if in reference of your spiritual adversity and the things that's coming up against you while you're pulling for unity and doing the greater good for the collective, you will have spiritual warfare in the supernatural, on the spiritual realm of things. Okay. And it's best for you to be able to be cosmically aware. Planetary alignment also plays a part in it, where right now we're having all these different planets that are in these very aggressive planetary alignments, such as the energy that comes through like a force to be reckoned with. If you're doing any treacherous, wicked things, that's just what's going to come through. And for some, it doesn't mean that you have to be doing that either. You can be doing the greater good, and that energy tries to combat you, right? Because of the greater good and the energy that wants to take over. So in these cases, this is when you have to still use those tools, right? Put up your spiritual protections, protect yourself spiritually, by, taking your baths, doing your prayers, doing your meditations, sealing your homes, doing your crystal grids, working with your crystals, working with your ancestors. These are all the things, family, working with your herbs, whatever it is. These are the tools in reference of combating spiritual warfare. All right. So I talked about all of those things. And the last thing I will talk about is, let's see, I think I had, what was the last one that I had? I think I made a mistake and put two, one. My last one was about the cleansing. So let me go back to that. Where's that one at? There you go. So this was my last one about, cleansing, and this went back to the territories, but it's still to be used. And I just talked about a lot of them, the methods of choosing your space as a barrier, or cleansing your space as a barrier for unwanted spiritual intrusions, whether you're going through it personally, externally, or spiritually with the cosmos, right? It's all about burning to clear the energy or invoking purification. You should be doing this weekly, or after any negative events, family. Crystals, place black tourmalines around, absorbing, disharmony in your black crystals. If you don't have black, tourmaline, use black onyx or black obsidian. These things can be a continuous presence of removing of negative energy. Chanting and mantras. I love doing mantras, and I always tell you guys to do some type of mantra and pay attention to your moon phases and pay attention to work with the moon energy. If it's planetary alignment chaos that we're dealing with now, then you must work with the moon. We just had a new moon. You should have been doing some moon energy work, working with your ancestors, putting that energy out there. They don't have that here, but they also have down here about sound therapy. I love sound therapy. Work with your singing bowls. That definitely, the singing bowls will disperse stagnant energy, period. Okay. Incense burning. I'm burning some now, right? Burn your incense, that purifies your environment, the territory where you are. Salts. Please utilize your salts when you're doing your salt baths around your home. I just put some out near my home, right? Put your black salts, put your white salts in your bath, your sea salts. This creates boundaries against negative entities and energies. And then it always comes back to prayers and affirmations over your life to invoke the divine protection and the divine guidance. And to also, number one, out of everything, connecting with source, which is God, the Most High, whatever you want to call them, Allah, whatever spiritual connection you have to the Most High, the ancestor, source, the sun, and your ancestors. Period, point blank, right? Pour into your ancestors. I can't say it anymore, okay? And this is just a snippet of the things that I definitely wanted to just talk to you guys about on how to cleanse, how to, combat that spiritual attack and warfare, family. So you won't feel like there's nothing that was given to you of solutions, because I like to talk about things, but I like to give solutions as well. And this video intention was for you to be able to identify the three levels, right? And there's many others, right? But I can't do an hour-long video without just tapping on three, telling you what they actually mean and what it may look like in your life and why you are going through this when you're on a spiritual level, or even not even on certain spiritual journeys. But I told you in reference of the cosmic level, when you're on a higher spiritual journey, and when you're just coming in, you may be on that personal spiritual warfare level, right? And when you're amongst other people, regardless of which level you're on, you're going to have that external territory, strategic, right, community level that we've seen. So I touched on all of them. It was the intentions to show you the different levels that you're gonna go through it. It's some aspect of your life as a spiritual being, and that's probably who's watching me now. You're gonna and you could be going through it right now, right? So this is just to give you some type of notion and to also give you a solution in reference of how to combat this. And what I also advise is that you journal, write things down, the messages, the downloads, what's happening in your life, so you'll be able to see this documented out for yourself and be able to understand and see sometimes the symbolism and also the symptoms, so you can write your own prescription in reference of spiritually how to come out of the warfare. All right. So much love to you, because we are all natural healers of self. All right. So that is why you can be able to do whatever it is to heal thyself and to come out of any warfare, family. But you must first understand and have faith and know that you conquer all battles, that you have the power to succeed. All right. So much love to you. I hope you guys got a lot out of this spiritual warfare video. Sorry, at times the ancestors was trying to push me through it, because, honey, let me tell you something. The demonic forces will try to come in, especially when you're doing anything in reference of ascending, right? So I hope that this comes to you to allow you to move through your ascension, especially now being able to pinpoint or to understand about why this is happening to you, or why you're going through this at this time on your spiritual journey, and to understand that your light bright light, right? is attracting that darkness. But it's about utilizing and being the alchemist that you are, and use that darkness as your protection and balance the darkness with the light. All right. Much love to you. I'll see you soon. This is High Priestess Key 333. Peace, family. Peace.